Hello and welcome to the Old Man Orange podcast. I'm Spencer Scott Holmes.
And I'm Ryan Dunigan.
And we're taking a trip back in time to good old 90s once again to watch a Tarantino movie. And probably one of the almost like least watched Tarantino ones. Now that's not saying anything against it. But that movie right there is Jackie Brown.
For centuries, Americans have gathered together to celebrate the holidays, reaffirm family ties, and wish goodwill to all men. But this Christmas, Santa's got a brand new bag.
Now you gotta listen to this, man, because this concerns you, all right?
You have the chance to walk off with $500,000. Would you take it?
Yeah.
What do a stewardess, a gun runner, a bail bondsman, an ex-con, a federal agent, and a beach bunny have in common?
You gonna come in on this thing with me, you got to be prepared to go all the way.
They're all chasing $500,000 in cash.
It wouldn't even be missed.
$500,000 will always be missed.
Let him get the money and then just take it from him.
She trying to play your ass against me, huh?
That was fun.
Yeah, I don't leave the spot.
So she ain't your girlfriend. Is that what you thought?
Oh, I hope you felt appropriately guilty afterward.
What'd I do?
There's only one question.
Man, I ain't getting in this trunk.
You ain't gonna be in here no more than 10 minutes.
Man, I ain't riding in no trunk for no minute.
Who's playing who?
Let's make a deal. Yeah? So what you gonna give us?
Are you gonna offer to set him up?
Yeah.
Let's go doing something stupid.
Pam Grier, Samuel L. Jackson, Robert Forster, Bridget Fonda, Michael Keaton, and Robert De Niro.
Is she dead? Yes or no, is she dead?
Pretty much.
Quentin Tarantino's Jackie Brown.
AK-47, when you absolutely, positively got to kill every mother in the room, except no substitutes.
Nothing gets between me and my AK.
And Jackie Brown is one of those ones. I feel like, because, I've only seen that movie. This might have been the 5th time I've watched it, and the whole run. And back in the day, it was kind of a hard movie to run across. I remember the day that I finally found it on DVD, I was like, oh my gosh, Jackie Brown, you don't just run across this any day.
Well, plus Tarantino kind of had that thing where for a while he kind of came out of nowhere. He sold a couple scripts. And then once Reservoir Dogs got made, like, oh, wow, this guy's really good. So then people looked more into his scripts. And then it became more of a thing of like Pulp Fiction came out. Then like every Tarantino script that was ever written was there. They're trying to get him to write something for them. And then so Jackie Brown for a while was like, holy shit, it's the new Tarantino movie coming out. And it did good and got a lot of praise. But then just kind of, I guess it was kind of different because everything he's done has been original, and that was the first thing that was a adaptation to a book, Rum Punch.
Well, yeah, and it's to a book, and that apparently there's like tons of these books out there that all involve these same characters, and there's actually a bunch of movies that they made, and even Michael Keaton himself plays the same character he plays in Jackie Brown in like another movie of this guy's books. Really?
Well,
yeah.
I know that there's a book called A Life of Crime, which they're the name of the movie. It came out in 2013. There's a movie called Life of Crime, and the book it was based on was called Switch, and it focuses on Ordell, Lewis, and Melanie. Maybe there's other characters in there, but it focuses on them. Mm-hmm. And it looks like a different tone. It doesn't look like it's advertising the prequel to Jackie Brown. They even got different actors playing them. But it looks almost more like a lot more comical in that version. So maybe the book was originally comical, way more comical, or maybe this particular movie version was way more comical. I don't know. But I remember I heard about that movie a while back being made, but I heard it was Jamie Foxx and I think Colin Farrell playing those two characters. But then that movie never came out. I'm like, oh, I guess that's not it. But I guess it just was switched actors at some point.
Yeah, that Michael Keaton one is Out of Sight. Which that's one of those movies, like, I know of that movie. I don't think I've ever really seen it, but I know of it. But yeah, this guy...
It's kind of like that Parker thing, where they have a bunch of books about him.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking it was. I'm thinking it's more like Parker, and this... I mean, the guy did Jackie Brown, his name's like Elmore Leonard, something like that. But,
I had the file up a second ago, but yeah.
Yeah, it's just like... Parker's a good example of that, too, because, they have Point Blank with Lee Marvin in the 60s, and then there's kind of, you could say, the remake of that same book in the 90s with Mel Gibson and fucking... I can't think of the name. It's probably like my favorite Mel Gibson movie of all time. I'm drawing a blank right now.
Frying Pan one?
Yeah, well...
That has happened. That's a scene with the frying pan where he hits her in the side of the head with the frying pan or something.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's in the director's cut version of it, which is awesome because that movie has like 2 sweet versions. But
the writer's name is
Elmore
Leonard.
But the thing is even though this movie is kind of based off a book, it feels 100% like a Tarantino movie. If nobody told you that, you would never know the difference. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, I'll say that it still feels like a Tarantino movie, but it feels different from any other like written, directed Tarantino movie to me, because and we're going to go into spoilers here, folks. But the thing about it almost feels, and not just because Robert De Niro's in it, it feels almost kind of like Tarantino trying to do a little bit more of a Martin Scorsese movie. Like I feel like he took inspiration from Martin Scorsese, but this feels much more like a Martin Scorsese movie to me. You know what I mean?
I guess I could sort of see that.
No, it still feels like a Tarantino movie, but I guess kind of in the aspect of how do I put this? It's kind of like it still feels Tarantino, but I feel like this took more inspiration from Scorsese, where his other movies had a little bit of Scorsese, but they're more of probably weird cult action films no one else knew about at the time, and then he just sprinkled a little bit of Scorsese in that. You know what I mean? Because there's, for instance, like the way he uses music. Tarantino will have like music cues, kind of like how Scorsese does. But he'll usually have it in a way where someone turns on a record player or someone walks in a room and this one really particular song that Tarantino loves is playing on the radio. This has like that thing where after De Niro shoots Bridget Fonda, he gets in the car, it's over his shoulder. That song picks up on the radio. It's kind of matching the mood. The car dies, starts it back up. The song picks up again. Just that really reminded me of a scene out of a Scorsese film.
Well, I will say that I think that Martin Scorsese, that's like the most similar thing to Tarantino. It's one of those ones, if almost a kid came up to you and you're like, I just fell in love with Quentin Tarantino and I watched all his stuff. What do I watch next? I would say, now start watching all of Martin Scorsese's. That's probably about the most similar director you can get. And, you know, in a sense, because you watch a lot of old Martin Scorsese movies and you're like, they're the total proto, like, Tarantino flicks. You know, really at the end of the day, they're very similar. So I could see that for sure in Jackie Brown even too. I mean, plus you got De Niro and you got Samuel L. Jackson, even though I think he's only in like 2 Scorsese films.
He gets shot in the back of the head in Goodfellas, and that shows
that's like the original.
That shows how much he's come. Like, okay, what Goodfellas came out 91, 92, 90. And then 90, and then you know Pulp Fiction comes out in 94,
Jurassic Park in 93,
and then 97 we get Jackie Brown. He's like, well, who's working for who now?
Yeah, who's gonna shoot who in the head? But
he needs to shoot Joe Pesci in the head for it to come full circle.
Yeah, for it to all come back around and everything. What I like about this movie is I like how Robert De Niro's in it, but it's like the laziest Robert De Niro. Like it just, it almost, yeah. Well, I like that too, but it almost just looks like Robert De Niro like kind of doesn't want to be there, but not like in a bad way. Like just like Robert De Niro just rolled out of bed. They told him to just say these lines. He kind of did. They placed him on a couch, gave him like a bong to smoke on for a bit, just to kind of give him a prop.
Well, I'll say that
even when he talks, he just kind of like mumbles almost.
The fact that De Niro is playing this type of character makes me really happy because I'm so used to seeing De Niro as the badass who has the monologue, who's running shit. And I'll be honest, maybe I haven't been watching enough interviews with him. Whenever I see De Niro in an interview, he usually acts the way he does in this movie. You know, like he's just spent. And it's like he saves all his emotion for acting. At least most of the stuff I see him in. The only time I think I saw him, it was like when he did that anti-Trump ad. Like, this guy is so fucking stupid. It makes me want to punch him in the fucking face. You know, when that thing came out last election. That was the most, like, personality I've seen him have when he's not acting. So, you know, maybe he had to sprinkle a little on for that ad. But it's one of those things, though, just because I watched an interview with him in Quentin Tarantino regarding this movie. And you can see Tarantino's like, oh, I'm such a big fan of Bob here. Bob knows what he's doing. He's been doing these for years, and he's a master at this. I first met him when I was bringing like Reservoir Dogs to Cannes Film Festival or whatever. And then De Niro's sitting there slouched, kind of like, yeah, I'm just got this movie. It seemed interesting, and sometimes he goes to something he wants to do, sometimes I do something I want to do, and like Tarantino's like, yeah, man, it was like this total yin and yang of like Tarantino super excited, and
Robert De Niro just like, yeah, showed up, whatever.
And the reason why the interview is like, I gotta get out of here, I gotta catch my plane. That's how it ends.
And it's funny too, when Robert De Niro originally came for this movie, he wanted to actually play the Max Cherry character.
I can see that.
And then that was already set up for Robert Forster, so it was like, Tarantino's like, I already kind of pretty much planned it for that, but he's like, here, you can be this guy that kind of just hangs out and doesn't, just kind of, he's a big part to the story, but he's just kind of there for a while. You almost kind of wonder, he's literally just the guy for Samuel L. Jackson to talk to.
Well, he even said that like, a lot of people think of him as like a fuck up or he's an idiot. It's like, no, he's not a fuck up or an idiot. He was amazing back in his day. He was like the guy, but just going through the process, he's just kind of beaten down. A lot of this movie's about being beaten down and just tired of the shit
and being old, which is kind of funny because Tarantino, when you think about when he put this together, he wasn't really that old, but he's writing a story about just being like old and haggard and worn out and not being able to do as much as you used to be able to do. That's really what this movie kind of is. I think that's what makes it kind of like one of those Tarantino movies that I almost feel like you would never show Jackie Brown to somebody right off the bat. Like, if someone's like, oh, I just got into Tarantino movies, you would wait a while. You'd make sure they saw kind of all the other ones, because I feel like you have to be really into Tarantino to really enjoy Jackie Brown. It's like the most hardcore Tarantino movie there probably is.
Well, I'd say it's kind of like, I don't know, I feel like it's almost kind of like, I feel one of two, I feel like it can kind of go either way. Like, say you love Tarantino. This might not be your favorite Tarantino movie, but it may be up there. And it's just a lot of talking, because this is almost just talk. This is almost just like monologue porn, this movie. But on top of that, I feel like a lot of other people may be dragged away from Tarantino because of how violent it is and how it's a lot of, kind of not breaking the fourth wall, but sort of self-aware of like the genre and all that. Mm-hmm. And this movie seems to be like the most straightforward movie that doesn't really play with time that much, instead of when the actual, I guess, heist is going down. And, I think that it's kind of weird. Like, it's not a movie I think you just show anybody, but I feel like it's either you got to be a Tarantino fan, or it's be like, I'm not that big into him, but I like this one because it's not like his other movies.
Yeah, no, definitely there. Because it just has, as well as ones, it's like, it's a movie that doesn't have really a whole lot of action. When it does have action, the action's like pretty much off screen or like very like censored, I guess you could almost even say. So like, I think that always kind of threw people off when they first watched it. They're like, oh, that's what it looks like. I wonder why it wasn't that violent. It's almost like it's the equivalent of like a PG-13 version of a Tarantino movie, if that makes sense.
It kind of is. The most violent part is when De Niro, spoilers, when De Niro dies. He gets shot in the guts, and a little bit of blood goes against the window.
But the seat's blocking it all, so all you see is a little bit of blood.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, it's more just rated R, more than anything, just for language.
Well, yeah, language.
I think the only thing about that is, that's really getting this movie an R, which feels weird, because most Tarantino movies, it's like, not always nudity, but like a lot of violence. And even though there's only like a few scenes of violence, like Death Proof, there's barely any action in that movie until like the last 20 minutes, I guess. But the first death, it just goes from being this long talking movie to be like, what the fuck? You see that chick's face get taken off, like fucking a leg get tumbling down the street.
Yeah, just all kinds of like copious amounts of violence. Well, and that's always kind of how Tarantino movies are. They're not filled with violence, but when there is a violent scene, it's mostly pretty good.
And that's probably that scene, maybe it's meant to be a real gut punch, because like you're just kind of waiting for something to happen. It just happens all at once like that for Death Proof. Now, I guess we should actually talk about, for people, we are going to go into spoilers, but if you're still listening to this anyway, I guess we should say generally what the movie's about. So basically it's made to be, based on a book called Rum Punch. And he kind of, I don't think the original book had this whole tone. I think I read somewhere that Jackie Brown was originally a white lady, but he decided to make her black and make kind of a nod to blaxploitation. Not make it a blaxploitation movie exactly, but a nod to it.
Yeah, she was a white lady, and it was like Jackie Birch or something like that, or it wasn't Jackie Brown.
Mm-hmm. I actually kind of like that because I like they got Pam Grier because she just looks she's just something about, if it was some, I don't think it would have felt like the same movie if it didn't have Pam Grier as the main character playing this role. But the way Tarantino's trying to do it, like, oh, this could almost be like a Pam Grier blaxploitation character just 20 years later from when those movies are made, and now she's a flight attendant and she's kind of out of options. She runs money for Samuel Jackson's character, who's a gun runner, and she gets caught and has to go to jail. He bails her out. So then she's like, shit, the cops want me to work for them so I can get him in trouble, but that's not going to do anything for me. And I can't just keep doing this because I can't give that much more jobs. I'm 44. I can't start over at this point. So she's trying to develop a scheme to outwit the cops. Ordell, which is the Samuel Jackson character, and then with the help of Max Cherry, who is this bail bondsman played by Robert Forster.
Yeah, so it's pretty much. And the thing about it's kind of funny is the movie itself is really a very, very simple plot movie. There's really not a whole lot going on, and I think that's what makes it kind of like an odd one sometimes too when you try to show somebody, because the movie's like 2 hours and 35 minutes long, and I will say, like, though it still works at 2 hours and 35 minutes long, it's one of those movies that, like, it realistically is like a 2-hour movie that's just extended. It, like, every moment that, like, you can get to extend a scene, I feel like is taken. Like, you know, there's just all these, like, lines you can see in there that, like, a normal director would have cut out, you know, in certain scenes that kind of linger on that nobody else would have let linger on, but just in this one, it's just, I felt like Tarantino had so much freedom. He said, fuck it, I can do whatever I want. I'm going to make this movie just literally, like, what you're here for is you're not here for the action and the heist. You're here for the talkie scenes. You're here for, like, the hanging out with the gang kind of vibe.
Definitely, because a lot of those scenes, I mean, I think that's kind of part of his, like, here's an example of, this is not my favorite Tarantino movie. This is probably mid-range for Tarantino to me. I still really like this movie, but it's not a movie I can just throw on at any point. Mm-hmm. But that being said, I think this is an example of, like, Tarantino, like, okay, here's an example where you can just let Tarantino do what he wants with dialogue and just let him riff and have it be totally awesome. And then you take his weakest movie, Death Proof, which is still a good movie, but where it just kind of lingers too long. Yeah. Maybe because that's just people hanging out at the bar and for the first half. And then this is like, well, at least they're developing a plot here and there. And there's a part where I think a good example of that is when you see him developing down to the level of, like, what kind of bag is she going to switch the money out in? And they're describing it. Like, it's a white bag. He says it's a white bag. He's kind of up with a lady's face with pink lettering and an attractive woman on the bag. Yeah, so pink lettering. It just, like, those kind of things. Yeah, like, it feels very realistic, but it didn't need to happen. But at the same time, it kind of fleshes it out a lot more.
Yeah, it's that weird one. I feel like this. It works both ways. I feel like, even though I've never seen the version where it's, like, edited down, but it works having those extended scenes in it. But it also, I feel like, would work just as well if those scenes were a little bit, like, sped up and just kind of just the pacing was just chopped a little bit quicker. And not saying that, like, it's a slow movie. Well, it's this weird thing. It flows nicely, but it also is a slow movie, if that makes any sense.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Like, I want to say, like, there's other things about the movie. Like, some of my favorite scenes are actually just the scenes where, even though he's not doing a whole lot, you just kind of see it. You can see it in him. Robert De Niro and, like, Samuel Jackson and Bridget Fonda just kind of hanging out. Those are a lot of my favorite scenes. Uh-huh. And, like, just it's kind of like, you know, you would get so much shit for this scene today, but back then they're using this scene to advertise the movie. 'Cause I was rewatching interviews, and this is a clip they would often choose. There's that part where he's like, he's showing, like, no one messes with me and my AK. They're watching the AK.
Chicks with Guns.
Yeah, Chicks with Guns video. And the phone's ringing, and Sam Jackson's like, grab that phone, won't you, baby? And then Bridget Fonda's like, you know it's for you. He says, girl, don't make me put my foot up your ass. Just shoots her the most menacing, scary stare you don't want to be on the other side of. And just a stare down. She gets up, she's like, hello, it's for you. It's back down.
And slams it back down.
Yeah, so now this day and age, if that movie came out and they're using that to advertise it, there'd be so many like complaints, like how dare they?
Well, there's also that part too, like in the end where like where Robert De Niro shoots Bridget Fonda, and then he picks up Samuel Jackson in the car, and Samuel Jackson looks like, well, what happened to Melanie? He's like, well, she was talking her mouth off, she was giving me lip, she was just being a real pain in the fucking ass, making fun of me every single second because I couldn't find the goddamn car. She's like, well, dude, just get to the point. What'd you do? Well, I shot her. What do you mean you shot her? Like, why'd you shoot her? Why don't you just slap her upside the head and continue on?
He said like you could have just punched that bitch in the mouth. She would have shut the fuck up.
Like that's what I do. I think it's that one. It's like the perfect example though is like you can get away with this because here's the thing. Dude, Jackie Brown's in there and she's a strong female character, but Bridget Fonda's supposed to be almost like the worst version of a female. She's lazy. Yeah. She does absolutely nothing. She's probably uneducated. She probably is not contributing anything to society. So I feel like that's okay because it's just saying like, hey, here's just like the worst. And then here's Jackie Brown, who's a lady who's trying her hardest to do what's right. And obviously the world hasn't given her the greatest thing. So she's going to take her little cut. That's the movie part of it all. And I think, as you mentioned with Death Proof and full of talk scenes, I think the reason why like I've lots of times never cared for Death Proof nearly as much too is all the talking scenes generally of like many of those characters, they just feel like a bunch of the Bridget Fonda characters all hanging out together. And by themselves, fine, but when there's a bunch of these just kind of loser girls together, you're kind of like, come on, can we just like get on with this, I think it's because that's what it was. I remember the last time I watched Death Proof, I kind of was like, this is the thing why also this movie I don't really like near as much, is the conversations are uninteresting. Like, you know what I mean? Like, if you're gonna like sit around and talk, like have something good. Like, I love that scene of like the chicks with guns and like Samuel Jackson's just talking about every single gun, going over the Tech 9, explaining why everybody wants to have the 45 because they all watch Chow Yun Fat use it, and then now they gotta have the 45. And like, I like that. And I like how you're learning as like you're going on. Where in Death Proof, it's just literally people talking about nothing.
And that regarding what you said about Chow Yun Fat, he doesn't even say Chow Yun Fat. Like the killer has the gun. Everybody wants what the killer has. So he's like, so if you know your Hong Kong shoot 'em up movies, there you go. I thought that was kind of cool because to other people, it means the killer. Like what killer? So I thought that was just a cool like reference he makes. But that's what Tarantino does. But just to clarify, I'm not like attacking the movie for that whole Bridget Fonda relationship, just because I would make that exact same argument. Like, well, it's named after this really cool, strong female character. So, and that's, I think, Jack, even though this isn't one of my favorite Tarantino films, like I said, it's in the middle. I think Jackie Brown's probably one of his best characters.
I think so too. Well, and this is one of these movies that, like, I feel like the more you kind of watch it, the better it sort of is as a movie. I mean, I think it's kind of hard for it to rise above some of the other Tarantino ones, but it still is just really good. And it's one of those movies, you throw it on, it's hard to kind of turn it off. Like, I threw it on last night, and I was like, I'll just watch, like, I don't know, half an hour, 45 minutes or something like that. And next thing you know, it's like, you're getting tired, but you're kind of like, you're still watching it. And you're still watching it, like, oh, I'll just go to the next scene. I'll go to the next scene. And it does have that good, like, it hooks you in, you get really used to it. I think about the only time is about a little bit towards about the last, like, 20 minutes of the movie, I will say I do get just a little bit burnt, and I've noticed that about every single time I've watched it. I do get the point where it's like, okay, this could probably wrap up by now. And that's where I feel like if this movie was maybe a 2-hour-long movie, I think just it would flow nicer. And I think that would also make it a little bit easier accessible for regular people to kind of watch. And that's probably where it is. It's like this movie does well to like critics and people that are really into film, but I feel like it just didn't sell nearly as well to regular folks because they probably went in expecting Reservoir Dogs and Pulp Fiction. They kind of come out and go, oh God, it was just a long drawn-out movie of talking and only 4 people died. Like, I can see that. That's where it's like, you don't just show this movie to anybody. You got to kind of like prep them first, almost.
And there's that opening where Jackie Brown is kind of going on the, not the escalator, but the
it's the flat escalator.
The conveyor belt. The conveyor belt. Yeah, she's moving along the conveyor belt, and they're playing 110th Street. It feels very, like
it's like The Graduate.
Yeah, well, she's moving. Yeah, and then
that's what I think of, just because The Graduate has that one where Dustin Hoffman's just sitting there, like going down the conveyor belt.
Well, Sound of Silence plays. Where this, it's like he said. I read in several interviews. He said that like that scene, it's meant to get across that she's really strong and she's a badass. And then at the same time, though, as it goes on, she's like, oh shit, she's rushing to get to work right now. That's what's happening because you see her running. Then you see her. Oh, hey, welcome aboard. Hello, welcome.
Yeah, it starts just picking up as the song picks up.
And then we don't see her again, basically for I want to say like another like 15 minutes maybe, and then we just focus on Samuel Jackson, Bridget Fonda, and Robert De Niro's character, and then that's where you find out about Chris Tucker's character who just went to prison and got out. And I love that whole scene where he goes there because like he just like for instance like you said the little additional audio, the little additional like dialogue that's not needed, but I totally get why it's there.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, hey man, you can just go wait in the car. He says, wait in the car. Like I think this wants to get across that like how long De Niro's been in jail. It's just like, just push this little button, unlocks. What do you mean unlocks? Just push it. It goes beep, beep, it'll unlock it. You can listen to the music, just don't mess with my sounds or volumes. It's as loud as you want though. You're like, so it's like those kind of things like that, which make it seem very believable. But I think that's kind of also what like 10 of those really add up after a while.
Well, I think that's true. That's what makes the movie 2.5 hours long. And it's those ones. It's like it's a weird thing. Is like when you watch those certain ones, it's not that they're really, yeah, even though they're not necessary, but they still work. It's just this weird kind of like balance that kind of happens. But yeah, I don't know what it is, what you would need to shorten exactly to kind of make this movie just have that little bit more full. As I feel it's like as it gets farther into the movie, it just kind of gets a little bit long-winded. Once again, not a bad thing, but it does, and I've just noticed it every single time I've watched it. So it's not like by the fifth watch into it, it kind of like, oh, okay, I got kind of used to it. I'm like, always those last 20 minutes always feel like a little bit extended.
Someone I'm surprised we didn't really talk that much about yet, because he like steals so much of this movie, and he's almost like, I guess, almost the second main character is Samuel Jackson, because he like really, this is kind of a perfect example of like Samuel Jackson, like, because I'll say this, Jules Winfield, he's obviously a bad motherfucker, as well it says, but you just love Jules. Something about Jules, I can't get mad at him. Even when you first see that movie and he kills Brad and everybody else in the room, I can't get mad at Jules. I just can't. And this one, I see why you would not like him, but at the same time, I want to follow Ordell. And he just has this like, he has all the fun sides of like a Samuel Jackson character. But he has that very dark, menacing, like, it's almost more intimidating than Jules. I still think Jules wouldn't have fight against Ordell, but he still, because I think he's a bit smarter. But he has something about the look he gives when he's pissed off in this movie, and the tone of his voice is just so much more menacing. And
then he's even got like a sad moment too, because I think about right at the very end of the movie when Max Cherry's taking him into the bail bonds, and this is supposed to be where Samuel Jackson gets his money back from Jackie Brown, and he keeps kind of going over like, you're not setting me up or anything like that. I want to believe you, but and he's even just looking at me. He's got this like sad puppy dog eyes. He's like, I go in there, nothing funny's gonna happen, right? It's just gonna be get my money. I'm gonna walk out, we'll be all good. If not, I gotta shoot you in the head. Nothing to you. It's just how it has to be. But he just had his look in his face is so sad, and this is where I feel like this is. I don't know. Was this really the first time where Samuel Jackson was allowed to like shine? Because in all other movies, he always is like his parts are never that long. He's a great part of a movie, but he always has like the little bit parts. Because even in Pulp Fiction, you think of his character being really big, but then if you like take his minutes in there, it's like he's only in the movie for like 35, 40 minutes or so. Yeah, he stands out more. And this is the first movie because like realistically, I feel like Samuel Jackson is almost the main character. I mean, he's not the main character in the title, but he probably has more screen time than anybody else. Even Jackie Brown, I think he has more screen time than.
Well, I think that the thing about Pulp Fiction is that's three stories there. He's Butch is the star of one story. Vincent's the star of the second story. Last story, which we all think of on Pulp Fiction, Jules is the star of that. So this one, I don't think this is the first time he got a chance to shine. I'm guessing there had to be more films because after Pulp Fiction came out, he probably had a lot more movies he got to do. But I'm thinking this might be like the first like Tarantino-esque role that he really got since Pulp Fiction, which really cemented that whole dynamic we know Samuel Jackson does.
Well, I just think of him in other movies, like Menace to Society. He just plays the father, and he's got a really badass part, but he's only in the first like 10 minutes of the movie, and that's it. He's in Juice, and he just plays a guy who owns the arcade, and it's a cool part, but he's still just a small character. He's in Jurassic Park, and he's the guy that's got to save everybody, but that it's not like he's like John Hammond or anything like that. It's not like he's Alan Grant, you know what I mean? Like, I felt like this is the first time that I ever saw, I'm thinking about, because I'm trying to think of a movie before 97 where he is like almost the main character throughout, because he pretty much is the main character in this one. I mean, I know Jackie Brown's in the title, but he's just as main character as Jackie Brown.
No, I think you're right. This is probably like there might be another one or two in there because there's a lot of he probably had a lot of he's just one of those guys who's always working. So it wouldn't surprise me the least bit if he had another one or two main character roles. But I think that this is one where he really got to do. He's doing the Quentin Tarantino thing again, and people were excited to see that because he did it so good in Pulp Fiction. Like now we're gonna get a whole movie of that, and I think that works. But I think it does a good job of balancing out his sinister side and his funny side. Just because, like, even the things he'd say, like, there's that part we were talking about at the beginning where he's just all like, bitch, don't even put my foot up your ass. There's that whole part. And then there's also, like, the thing, like, where you get to see him really sad but angry at the same time, where he's sad that he has to kill Lewis. He doesn't want to, but he's sad because he fucked up bad. He has to... Business comes first, and like this is like literally out of the words of Tarantino. He said it's almost more out of like there's that part when Lewis and Ordell are driving, and he says like, "Well, what happened?" And he's just like, "Well, this happened. She was shooting her fucking mouth off, and I had to shoot her. This and that." And then after he says, "You guys weren't planning something, were you?" And that's where he's like, "Fuck you, fuck you!" Like he's legitimately hurt. This is like. He loves him like a brother, and he says like if part of the story is about Max Cherry and Jackie Brown, the other half is about Lewis and Ordell.
Yeah,
and they're like the beginning of one relationship, the end of another.
And I really think it is. It's like these kind of movies and like all these little performances that pretty much Samuel L. Jackson had throughout the '90s that finally said where someone's like, you know what, who he'd be awesome as is let's just hire him as the main character. Just picture. His character throughout the whole thing, because I'm trying to think about it, because even like Deep Blue Sea, he's not the main character in that one either. He's just kind of there too. So he was kind of almost like always like the side character and everything like that before, and just building up. And I think it's just one of those ones like you just look at any of his performances because every performance he does is pretty much like amazing. Mm-hmm. Like, he's like that kind of guy. You just bring him in, and that 10 minutes, whatever he's in, it's golden. That 10 minutes. The rest of your movie might not be great, but those 10 minutes that he shows up for it, perfect.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not ashamed to say it. Maybe I'd feel different about it now. I like Formula 51. Samuel Jackson walking around in a kilt.
I don't think I ever saw that one.
It's I'm not sure if it would stand up now, but this is also the time, right? This is like late high school, right, when I discovered Tarantino. I mean, I knew of Tarantino, but that's where I really got into Tarantino. Mm-hmm. And I was just looking for anything that kind of resembled Tarantino. And this is kind of one of those really weird, random, like, kind of late to the party Tarantino ripoff movies, and also trying to do kind of a Guy Ritchie thing at the same time. And it's Samuel Jackson as a drug dealer, and he's like the best chemist ever. And Meatloaf is chasing after him. He's a gangster, and he's got the most expensive or best drug in the world. And he's like, we got to get him. And it's in England. And for some reason, Samuel Jackson's running around in a kilt.
This sounds amazing.
At some point, he whacks a guy in the side of the face with a golf club, says, "Booyah, motherfucker!" Like that. So it's like one of those movies. It's considered to be like one of the worst movies ever made by a lot of people, but I'm really liking it. And I got to check it out again. I haven't seen it since probably my junior year of high school, but it was just like...
This doesn't sound bad at all. This sounds only just totally amazing. Like whoever voted worst movie ever, I think needs to see this movie again. They're probably movie snobs that, know what I mean?
It's like one of those... It's kind of like one of those movies like... People say it's horrible at the time, but later kind of gets a little bit of a following. Like I didn't know this but back when I saw it, I loved it, and I still like this movie a lot. Death to Smoochie, at the time when that came out, people were saying this is one of the worst movies of the year, but then there was a lot of people defending them. A handful of people defending the movie. Now the movie's almost kind of looked back on like, oh yeah, that was kind of an interesting movie.
Well, I think of that movie being like pure amazing. Like perfect movie, like nothing wrong with it whatsoever. I think the reason why when it came out is I think parents are like, oh, it's a kid's movie. It's Robin Williams doing the Barney show. And it's like, yes, but no. You know what I mean? It's like one of those ones where, yeah, it is that kind of like Barney and like those all like Reading Rainbow and all that kind of stuff, but more like the fucked up gangster version of them all. And that's what I like about it, because Robin Williams, like his acting in that one, like is Rainbow Randolph's just so amazing.
Rainbow fucking Randolph!
Exactly. It's like, and I think that's what it was. I think when that movie came out, I think a lot of times that's what it does. It's like they go, oh, it's a kid's movie. Oh, it's like, oh wait, this is not for kids. Well, fuck this movie then. Get this movie out of here. And I think that's kind of what happened in that movie.
I think we may have said this before. We got to do a Death to Smoochie retrospect at some point. But
I've said that many a times to you.
Oh, I know. I just
it's like every once in a while
of
I go through the movies. I'm like, "You got Death for Smoochie with you?" It's like we should do that one at some point. We were supposed to do it at one point, and then at some point I was like, "Fuck it, I'm just gonna rewatch this movie again because I guess we're not doing it anytime soon."
I apologize. Well, we'll do it. Well, I don't remember what happened. Something came up, but yeah. Who knows if that'll be the next one? We'll figure that out. But anyway, I just want to say one little quick thing about that movie before we go back to Jackie Brown. The thing about that movie, they act and some of the way it's shot and the vibe of it, it's like a kids show. Just literally the way they talk and the music in the background, but they're swearing and they have this whole there's this whole mob story going on at the same time. So it's just kind of like, oh yeah, we're giving that kind of kid happy vibe, but it's fucked up shit's happening. I think that's another thing that people didn't really catch the irony of it, you know?
I think so too. And it's kind of funny because when I was watching it, I just realized that Smoochie, fucking what's his name?
Old Incredible Hulk. Not Sam Rockwell.
That'd be kind of awesome too, though. But
he would have been a good job. Edward Norton.
Yeah, Edward Norton. It's funny because you look at that Smoochie character. I feel like all his views. I'm like, he's got some pretty good views there. Like every single thing he's doing is mostly a pretty he's got good ideals going on, and he's super ahead of the curve to a lot of things that are like it sounds weird because his character's made to be a super healthy, proactive character. And I know we're going full on this movie, but. It's funny, a lot of that stuff that he's talking about in that movie, nobody was talking at all about in that time period. And then all of a sudden that became kind of popular, in the late 2000s. I thought that was kind of interesting. I'm like, dude, I don't know if Danny DeVito is really ahead of the curve on, fucking health nutrition because clearly it's showing on his body, but...
Oh, yeah.
But somehow, some way in that...
What I'd like to do, but fuck it.
I know all about it. As I feel as long as you read about it, you get healthy.
You know what happens to a skinny Danny DeVito? Fucking nothing. I lose work. All right?
They don't want that.
I gotta look like a fucking bowling ball. Shit. Anyway, but Jackie Brown, though, back to that for a second, or for the rest of the show. I actually really like the part where Bridget Fonda, because I'll say she is not really that likable. But it's one of those things where you kind of get why you would like her at first, because I feel like the audience kind of turns with her. Just okay, she's kind of lazy. She smokes pot all day, but she's friendly to Lewis and all that. And, putting up with Samuel Jackson, who's threatening her to get the phone at her own place, So it's one of those things where
he's probably paying for, though.
He's probably paying for, but at the same time, she's probably mouthing up. But more than likely, you're probably right. And
because he mentions that actually throughout the movie, he's like, "Oh, I pay for all these people's houses."
Did he say that? Okay.
Yeah, he does a line in the movie that says that. Because clearly she doesn't work. We all know that.
Yeah, I assume she was a trust fund kid or something like that, maybe. But could be that too, though. Anyway. At first you kind of get why he kind of gets along with her, but then later, when the deal is actually going bad and she's just being a total fucking bitch for no reason, that's where it's kind of you kind of get the turn, how everything goes the way it does. And there's that part where she's being super cool with Lewis and she's being friendly with him, and it's kind of awkward for him because he doesn't really know her. He's already socially awkward. Mm-hmm. He says, "Oh yeah, that's me. That's Japan. That's Hiroko. I don't even remember him that well, but this and that, whatever." And one of those really long conversation scenes, a lot of just extra dialogue. And he says, "Oh well, yeah, you're skating right there. It looks fun." Then all of a sudden she abruptly says, "Wanna fuck?" It says 3 minutes later, you see him just the most unsexiest sex scene. He's just okay.
And he gets he's like, "You got a beer?"
Yeah.
I know that's one of the most weirdest. I feel like that's just thrown in there just to have it be oh fuck, that's what that is. Here's old Robert De Niro fucking some young girl, and just make it awkward and weird. But then it's still normal. It's just not nothing. Just the past 5 minutes.
Well, it's also probably one of those things where Samuel Jackson was probably just yo, throw him something. She probably actually did that at his call, I bet. So.
Yeah, and then it made him, Robert De Niro feel awkward later when they're at the bar. He's like, "Oh, gotta say something here,
Oh, you fucked it, didn't you?
Yeah, maybe. He's like, well, I thought she was your girlfriend. She's not my girlfriend. He's like, well, when I was thinking that though, I felt bad about it.
Yeah, you should feel bad. I kind of like how much they get along, and that makes it that much sadder when he actually kills him. Because you can see he doesn't want to kill him, and he is sad when he finds out that he kills Melanie, because he leans in, he shoots him, then he leans in, puts his hand on his shoulders. It's like, her ass was beautiful. Bang.
Yeah. Well, it's like that kind of thing. Like, that's what I like, but he explains it throughout the whole thing, how Melanie's like this kind of person. It's like, yeah, she's not trustworthy, she's not a good person, all the same, but the one thing you can always trust on is that Melanie will always be Melanie. Mm-hmm. So by knowing those, then you can predict exactly what she will do.
Mm-hmm. And there's that whole part where he says, all you gotta do is just punch her in the mouth, shut the fuck up. That's all you gotta do. And then there's that other scene he has with her where he's talking about where she actually kind of has a little bit of that good interaction with like Jackie Brown for a second when she goes to switch the money out with her, how it's kind of like this. I mean, it's not enough to totally redeem Melanie, but at the same time though, it's kind of one of those things like, it's because I feel like a lesser writer or director would just make her fool on, like, whatever, I don't care, you're fucking stupid. But they kind of just sprinkle enough kind of like, like little moments of Melanie to actually make her feel like a flushed out character. Like, oh, you look awesome in that dress, by the way, which I don't think another director would do. She's like, where's the money? Let me go,
Yeah, they would have just made the character just super obnoxious.
It's kind of like a thing with when he wrote, what's his name? When he wrote, I'm forgetting the Leonardo DiCaprio character's name from Django Unchained and the Samuel L. Jackson character from Django Unchained. But that whole relationship, like, I think it would have just been another kind of like slave. Yeah, the whole Candyland scene. I think that they would have, that dynamic between those two, I think they would have had that whole, oh, you're my slave and you do exactly what I say. But like Samuel Jackson knows him well enough to where he was like, he could talk shit to him, but he was still working for him. He's known him since he was a kid. And even though he is a slave, he's just like, they're fucking playing you. Here's why. Yeah, fucking look at it. It's obvious. He's telling like Leo DiCaprio, which no one other slave could probably get away with that, but he's known him so long. And then Leo DiCaprio in that movie, he's clearly a bad person. But you can see like, yo, no, I'm a total racist, but I love this black guy, that black girl, and this black guy. They're okay. But I feel like that, like, out of that though, even though he's still not a good person, giving him just a couple little attachments like that seems a little bit more realistic than a full-on like black and white, right? Like black and white, like I hate them all and I want them all under beneath me. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, and I feel like that's like how it realistically would have been. You know what I mean? Like I don't feel like obviously would have had that superiority, but at the same time he would have listened if like the guy that he's been raising him his whole life. If he's going to say something, it's not going to be like, oh, well, you're black. What are you going to know? It's like, I don't think it'd be like that necessarily. It'd be like, oh, well, I have known you my entire life. I trust you probably more than I trust a lot of other people. So it makes sense.
And I think he had a little bit of that with Melanie, because she is clearly a bitch, but adds just enough character to make her like bearable and kind of want to see where she goes. Kind of the same thing with Ordell.
Mm-hmm. No, and I think that's kind of like that works out well, is that it kind of, by keeping those characters in there where it's like, even if like you want to write a character that's technically a bad character or something like that, if you just add just these little bit of other elements into there, I feel something that well-rounded kind of works a little bit better. So once again, I feel that's what's missing with a lot of the characters in Death Proof, is that they don't have that well-roundedness. There's just a lot of those characters have nothing to like about them, except for Kurt Russell. Everybody else I have a hard time getting into, but like Kurt Russell, it's just like, okay, he's cool. But a lot of those, especially all the characters in the second act, those are the ones that's kind of like, I don't have anything to stand behind these characters. They don't have that three-dimensional design. It's just like they're just all three, or well, three of them are obnoxious. One of them's fine.
Mm-hmm. Bruce Willis's daughter from Die Hard.
Yeah, exactly.
Mary Elizabeth Winstead.
And she just gets left with the guy.
What you horny gal want?
Yeah.
The funny thing about that, I want to say this real quick, because Tarantino said in an interview, I know we're still Tarantino related. Tarantino said in an interview regarding Jackie Brown, he said, why do you always choose 70s actors? Are you trying to bring them back? He says, like, I'm not really trying to bring back 70s actors per se. Hollywood has the same 10, 15 tentpole names, and then the same 20, 30 character actors they always go to. And none of them, not saying they're bad or anything, but those are the ones they always want to go to. I got a lot of people I can think of back from like watching television back when I was a kid that I'd love to bring in. That's why I brought in Robert Forster. That's why I used Pam Grier. And it's more of like, are they a good actor and are they right for this role? So that leads me to believe Tarantino watched Little Nicky and a bunch of other Adam Sandler movies and says, like, for the trucker guy, I really want the guy to play, because he's in like 2 or 3 Tarantino films playing the same kind of role, but that means he's like, I'm a big fan of that guy right there, man. Because I don't believe he just picks anybody. So it's just like random character. I can see him being like, I really, there's the guy from in Death Proof. There's also the guy they get this is like one of those, this scene's dumb to me. I don't know why. It just, there's a whole part that says he's got a copy of Italian Vogue at the grocery store or whatever.
Oh yeah.
That grocery store clerk, that guy, he was the star. He was like one of the stars of that show Boston Public. So I can see him being, I love that show Boston Public back in the mid '90s, and I just, so it's just one of those where like of everybody to grab to play the clerk. I don't see it just being who we get, that guy. Okay, I can see him handpicking that guy for that role.
Well, and I think too, Tarantino, he likes to cherry pick those kind of actors that either had like maybe only small roles in other movies, and it's like, dude, that one scene of that guy was fucking amazing. Like, picture that guy now as one of the main characters. And dude, like, I think about it this way, it's like, you know what I mean? Like, if we were putting together a movie right now and they said, hey, who do you want? Like, I mean, I would go back and probably choose 80s and 90s actors because that's what I like. And I think it's just also kind of like what you grew up with. That's what you know more than anything else. That's like your period. It's almost like I've kind of learned that the period that you soak in the most amount of like media is pretty much from about the age 10 to 20. I feel like in that time period, that's your generation is 10 to 20. And through that, you just absorb everything you possibly can. Because 1, you have more free time than any other time in life. 2, this is when you're learning about everything. So you're just taking in, for like us, it'd be like, we're taking in copious amounts of movies, we're taking in video games, we're taking in books and comics and anything you can get your hands on. Because I kind of noticed that nowadays, like, now I almost like cherry pick things. I'm like, well, I've indulged like what I like. I know what I like now. You know what I mean? Like, I don't need to just watch random C movies because I feel like I'm going to learn something from it. Like, no, I kind of got that. I don't need to go out of my way to watch, very independent movies just because I feel like it'll make me more well-rounded in like storytelling. It's like, there's a point where it's like you kind of get enough of that and you're like, I got it. And then you start just going to the things you like and what, you've decided out of all that mass media that you've absorbed, like, where do I like the most? Where do I want to be at? And then you just chart your path to those directly instead of just like taking everything in, because you don't really know exactly what you like when you're 15 years old yet. You just discovered like things that you start to enjoy, so you start to go down the rabbit hole and you start to take the journey and get all kinds of stuff. And I feel like, Tarantino, like, his age range of 10 to 20 was the 70s. So boom, that's where like all this stuff that he's absorbed his entire life, or 70s into 80s. That's where it all is.
Kevin Smith in his book Tough Shit talks about when he talks about Michael Parks and how much he loves Michael Parks, and Tarantino is ultimately the one that introduced him to Michael Parks because of that's opening scene in From Dusk Till Dawn. Mm-hmm. He says at some point we've shown Tarantino Red State with Michael Parks, and they go downstairs into Quentin Tarantino's movie library, and he has an entire just shelf dedicated to Michael Parks. He says, here's a VHS copy of a movie where Parks played a soccer coach, and like Parks is rolling up a cigarette. It was a volleyball coach. Like one of those kind of things where it's just like that's dedication right there. Not only because it's like it's probably some random movie you probably could not, by that, maybe at least at that point, probably couldn't get on DVD or anything of. So just like this very random VHS recorded off television from a made for TV movie from the 70s.
Uh-huh. Yeah, those ones that are just so hard to come by that they cost like $70 on VHS used.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, because that makes sense, because Michael Parks, like, he has starring roles like in the 60s.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've ran across those like random Michael Parks. You're like, oh fuck, is that Michael Parks? My God, look how young he is. Because I'm just used to him always being kind of old. But I think just many of those actors too have that dry spell where your 10 years is sort of up, and then now, who really cares about you as much anymore? And then I think a lot of times like they can be kind of revitalized a little bit later once you get the kids that watched your movies now are older and they go, oh my God, this is who I want to have in it. And that's where, like, that works out with, like, people like Kevin Smith and Quentin Tarantino and Robert Rodriguez and so on.
Well, Robert Forster, for instance, he's kind of another example of a Michael Parks in my opinion, because there's that whole like area in the 60s and 70s actors where it's like they kind of have this, they didn't have the I am an actor kind of feel. They just had that kind of vibe to them, kind of like what you do is you show up on time, you work hard. You may not like the project, but it's a job, goddammit. So you take that job. You got a family to feed, and it's that very much that Charles Bronson mentality.
It's the blue collar approach to acting.
Yeah, which I mean, I'm sure that still exists, but it's like one of those things you'd see a lot more of it back in the 60s and 70s. And like the guys who made big out of that, obviously, were like people like Robert De Niro or Clint Eastwood. Mm-hmm. And the ones that they still worked, because that's the thing, Michael Parks, Robert Forster, guys like that. It's not that they never got work, because I looked at Robert Forster's IMDb. It's long, and that guy plays a lot of colonels and a lot of generals. If you need a colonel or a general for your movie, they go to him. It's even like in voice roles, like he did a lot of like voice acting stuff. So, and I think he's just one of those guys that like people grew up watching him, so they want him, like, it'd be cool to get him for this. And I remember, I don't know if it'd hold up to me as much now, but I remember back when I first saw it, I loved the movie Lucky Number 11. I loved that movie when I was young. And there's a part where I'm watching that movie like, oh shit, Max Cherry. And he's there, like, he's kind of like giving, not Mr. Exposition, I guess, but kind of like revealing like the plot twist of the movie. Like, I heard this story the other day, and telling it to like someone else, and just like, oh shit, he just spilled the whole story out for the big shock for the rest of the movie,
Mm-hmm. No, and I think that's kind of good, though, because that goes to show that, like, Tarantino kind of bring these guys back, and then next thing you know, they're getting kind of bigger roles again. And that's how I always feel with, like, a lot of actors. You think about, like, an actor, and you go, well, I haven't seen that actor in 10 years. But a lot of times when you look them up, you go, well, here's the thing. Well, maybe they have a TV gig, and the way that TV works is if you don't watch a TV show, you have no idea who the hell's in it. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And there's, especially nowadays with so many TV shows, it's easy for these actors to kind of get, like, a good gig, but if you're someone who doesn't watch TV or anything like that, it's like you might just go, where'd they go? They're not appearing in movies, so you kind of almost like forget about it, but they're always a something that they can go in. Or voice acting. Like in the olden days, voice acting was kind of looked down upon. Nowadays, it's not. But that would have been like, oh, you're doing voice acting now. What? You can't get in front of the camera anymore, huh? One of those moments.
Yeah. I
know a lot of guys would be like, well, I am doing the cartoons. Like they almost like don't want to say it.
I think a lot of those guys, they get a steady gig. Like now, like for a lot of people, TV is where they want to be, just because I got a steady gig as long as I don't kill off my character in the show, which that's got to be one of those things. Like someone says, like, here's what we're going to do. We're going to kill off this character. Like, oh my God, that'd be so emotional. But the actor themselves who doesn't want to leave the show is like,
I'll get laid off.
Cocksuckers. Yeah.
That's literally what it means. Like when you kill a character.
Don't worry, we'll have flashbacks.
Yeah, you're getting laid off. That's it. Forget about you. But it's like voice acting nowadays. Voice acting nowadays is a sought after career. It's not like in the olden days where it's kind of like almost like, well, if you can't do regular acting, guess what you can do? You can always muster up to the welfare line of voice acting.
But like Robert Forster has a huge IMDb list. He's always working. And to bring it back around to like our wheelhouse, actually, to like DC Comics, Pam Grier. And I'll say what's her who played Amanda Waller in Suicide Squad? What was her name again? She did a really good job, but
in the movie or in the cartoon
the movie,
show?
The movie.
I can't remember in the movie.
I forgot her name. She did a fantastic job, but Pam Grier, maybe not the best show, but she was, I think, the best. I think she was the best Amanda Waller back in Smallville.
Oh, she was in Smallville? That's cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah, she wasn't in very many episodes, but there's a few times she walked in like, oh shit, that's Pam Grier. Oh fuck, she's Amanda Waller,
I almost want to say she played Amanda Waller in some of the DCU ones.
Like some of the animated movies?
Yeah.
They do like to make callbacks to like actors revisiting roles, so that's a possibility. I mean, they had yeah.
I always think of her, she's also in, even though her role's not big, she starts off almost like the main character and then gets killed off, but in
Ghost of Mars?
Yeah, Ghost of Mars. Mm-hmm. And that's also one of the first times I ever saw Jason Statham. He's just like, I'm a douche, and I'm bald, and I look just as old as ever.
Well, it's kind of like in, whatchamacallit, in like, Bring It Back to the One. He's just like, I'm his sidekick.
Yeah, exactly. But that's like how it is, and like, yeah, it's funny how like he's like it's just like the total douche character in that one. But no, these characters being able to get bigger roles later on, it's cool when that happens. You know, it's like you think of like David Carradine, that's big actor of the '60s and '70s, disappears. You know, does stuff, yeah, but like, you know, it's not like he's Tom Cruise or Tom Hanks or anybody like that. I think that's what everybody was calling. Well, I'm not Tom Cruise famous, so you know, just saying.
Yeah,
But,
he's got a whole church backing him up.
yes, he's literally got a. That's what's the most amazing thing is like, literally his. That's why Tom Cruise I think is the most happiest man on the planet because dude, he's just got people just like at his beck. There's like a guy that probably just reorganizes his DVD shelf like all day long, like fucking just is down there making sure that it's all pristine for Tom when he comes down to watch his one movie a night.
Well, also, I'm sure he's a really nice guy and all, but he seems like he is detached from people because I heard him on this interview with the Nerdist. He says, like, what kind of movies do you love? Just like, I just like movies, you know? Like the most, like, beat around the bush answer you can give. Like, it's just movies, man. I'm just into so many kinds of movies. Like, all right, yeah, he can't think of anything. He's probably too busy making them to watch them. He doesn't want to say it.
Well, I think Tom Cruise is like Tarantino though, where like they're like omega obsessed with the movies because they just know like these deep like resources of different stuff. And I think because Tom Cruise watches like a movie like every single night, like he doesn't like deviate from that, so he's pretty up to date on everything of like what he does. And I bet you his collection would probably rival Tarantino's one. Like I've always wanted, they should have literally the battle of like whose collection's bigger, Tom Cruise's or Tarantino's.
You think that
Whose is bigger?
I'm sure that Tom Cruise knows how the studio runs and all that. I'm just thinking about reaching out, a way how he reaches out to people. But you've overheard him say he watches a movie every night or something like that, or?
Yeah, and I think it's just one of those ones like, see, Tarantino's kind of known as the movie guy. I don't think anybody's like showing up to Tom Cruise's house like, hey, we heard you had a big DVD collection.
No one's going to try to jeopardy him on like his film knowledge.
Yeah, I just don't think that just comes up nearly as much because it's just a little. He's just not publicly known as that. But I think he does have like just this massive projector room just with tons of movies, like, and as I said, I think literally that would rival like Tarantino's.
All right.
Now, maybe even bigger, just because you know it's Tom Cruise. He's probably got more people taking care of him there.
Yeah, I will say he's not to like bring him down because he did sound like a nice guy from the Nerdist interview, but it was one of those things where it just sounds like this guy is unnaturally nice, and how does he look that good at like 50 something? You know, so I'm like, there's definitely some crazy shit going on there.
Well, I feel it's like
supernatural
like,
level shit.
Literally, like if everything was taken care of you for like that, it's like you shouldn't have any stress. Mm-hmm. You shouldn't have anything like that's going to make your life harder and more difficult. Because it just seems like for Tom Cruise's life, if something's difficult, somebody comes in and fixes it for him. You know what I mean?
Walks in like he's about to get frustrated, like his blood pressure's rising. Someone just runs in, just starts sucking his dick, like, oh, okay, I'm all right, we're fine. No, we're fine.
Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, you know, this is that's what it is. I just picture like everywhere Tom Cruise is, there's just like people just around him, like
suck
doing
the stress
stuff.
out of me.
And it's not like they're like people he has to pay. They're just like literally people like, I have to do my 8 hours a day, and my 8 hours a day is cleaning Tom Cruise's toilet.
His Scientology interns.
Because those poor bastards have to put in 8 hours every single fucking day, 7 days a week. Can't take time off. If they take time off, they have to make that time up.
Oh boy, did you actually look into this right here?
The Leah, what's her name? I said Leah Thompson. That's not it. The lady from King of Queens. I remember on the Joe Rogan.
Joe
podcast.
Rogan.
Yeah.
I saw that one. I didn't
explained all that stuff. It's worth listening to just to hear all those things. And
I listened to the one where there's the guy who's currently running Scientology. His dad comes on. I listened to that one. That one was really interesting. I got to check out the Leah Thompson one. But going back to Jackie Brown again.
It's not Leah Thompson. Leah Thompson's the lady from Red Dawn.
Oh, all right. Well, whoever the Kings of Queens of lady was, whoever she was, Kevin James's wife.
In the show.
In the show, yeah. Max, like one of the best parts I think of this movie is actually Robert Forster and Pam Grier's relationship. Mm-hmm. Because you could tell, like Robert Forster, his character,
Max Forster.
Actually sounds like an
action hero name, like something that Chuck Norris would play back in the 80s.
Definitely, you know, hiking boots, fur trim jacket, you know, like with denim,
beard.
Yeah, so, like stalking grizzly bears whenever they come attack a campsite.
Max Forster is the National Guard, not the National Guard, is the Forest Service Ranger.
Then later he brings by like a bag of fish, kneels down to the bear, gives it to him. Like, I mean, no disrespect to your people. The bear bows to him, you know. And it doesn't sound like, I don't think it's far off from what it would be. But anyway, their whole relationship they have, like, I kind of like how they get across that Max Cherry is just this guy who's beaten down, and he's not, but he's bad at his job. Right? He's just been doing this for years. And this movie, I didn't have no idea how much work went into being a Bale's, but I didn't know it was like almost your borderline bounty hunter. I didn't realize that about bail bondsman. He tells a story about, like, I got my 38 and a stun gun. Like, you know, I never thought of a legal stun gun. Just pulls out this big ass black rod thing. I'm like, oh my god! Just like waiting in this guy's house to show up. He never showed up, but just waiting. Like, doing this for 19 years. Why the fuck am I still doing this shit?
Yeah, sitting for 3 hours in this house. It smells like cat pee and everything like that. It's just, yeah, what am I doing here?
And how Pam Grier has a thing like, I don't know what I'm still doing, working for a jet line that doesn't, it's a dead end job, goes nowhere. I have these benefits, but they go nowhere. They hardly cover me on anything. And it's just kind of like how they're polar opposite jobs, yet they just have this, they have like this real, like, I don't know where to go from here. This is all
almost a defeated kind of way of life.
Which makes the ending, I'm not sad when I turn this movie off, but it does have that really kind of like a slightly bitter ending. Like, because it doesn't feel like it's the end of the world, but it ends on this note where, like, he has an opportunity to change his life and he doesn't. He still is a bond salesman. She's clearly making steps to change her life, and he clearly regrets it after she leaves.
Yeah. It was weird. So, like, he's like, well, I just hired this new guy here, and you know how it is. I don't want this guy's life to go. Because there's this guy that he gets at the very end, this big black guy, who's not in the movie at all until like the last like 20 minutes. So that's all I can assume is this guy was literally just like hired the day before. And I was like, well, I can't just close up shop now. I just hired this guy. This guy's putting his whole life for me on this thing.
Well, just that like line that like Samuel Jackson says when he first meets Max Cherry. He says, man, he's a bigot, ain't he? Like, and he just says as a thing like, it was your idea to take that picture and put it up there, wasn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And he even uses the he's like one of the Mandingo ones. This all comes back around to fucking Django Unchained.
Yeah. And there's that whole part where like, actually, first let me ask you this. Does this movie seems like it could be part of the main Tarantino universe, but does it also have that same vibe, like it could almost be separate too?
Yeah, I guess it could be. I mean, like, because here's the thing. The Tarantino movies, like, the way that they all play almost feels like every single one of them can be separate, or they could all be partially connected. You know, that's sort of like, there's no, like, continuation exactly. There's more just, like, slight references to certain things that kind of make it that it could be, or that could just be a coincidence. And that's how I kind of feel.
There's basically two Tarantino universes. There's this universe, and then there's the very over-the-top movies, which are meant to be those movies they watch in that universe. Like Kill Bill, From Dusk Till Dawn, Django are meant to be movies they watch in that universe, where Inglourious Bastards, you'd think that'd be part of the other one, but Inglourious Bastards is part of the Pulp Fiction, Reservoir Dogs universe because the fact Hitler was killed in a movie theater kind of made pop culture way more relevant in that universe right there. So that's why people just talk about it casually, like it's no big deal frequently, and they all have this knowledge of it.
I guess that makes sense. I always just feel like that always seems like one of those like weird ways to try to explain that. It's just more like, you mean you just want to put you and your friends into movies, and now you got a way to try to explain why other people are like you and your friends.
That's what I heard. I don't know. That's what I heard. Who knows? That might be some film theory bullshit. I think Tarantino may have said that himself, but I'm not. I overheard that multiple times. So I don't know. I think it's one of those things like after a while, at first it's something you do. Then after a while you hear, maybe I'll put in the why. And, so after a while, it's like, well, that's how Kenny keeps on coming back to life, after a while.
Yeah, it's like you finally get your answer to it all. Mm-hmm. But, it's one of those ones like, it's one of those ones like they can link and they can not link, and I feel like it all kind of works out well. Like, if anything, this one I feel definitely would fit in the Reservoir Dogs Pulp Fiction universe. It just seems like this just the story that took place across town.
Mm-hmm. It definitely feels like it could. I'm just wondering, because this is like one of the movies that no one ever really brings up, and it's a fantastic movie still, but people hardly ever reference this one. I was gonna say that, but going back to their relationship, even like it gets, I'm kind of having hope they kind of get back together, maybe when she gets back from Madrid or whatever. But I think it's almost the fact that he walks away out of like focus in the camera. It's kind of like, oh, he's out of thought now. He's out of focus over there. We still see him kind of like hands over his head, like, why the fuck did I do that? Yeah, and she's sadly singing 110th Street to herself while she drives.
It's almost like even though she's leaving, it's just like how she began.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, but like it's that kind of it's like it's not a sad ending, not a happy ending. It's like just like a neutral ending almost.
Well, it's like he's got a lot of money, and I think he's just kind of like stuck in his routine. Like she's clearly trying to like, I'm gonna do something. I'm gonna change my life, and Max is more of like, you know what? I'm just I got enough to probably retire, but I'm just gonna go through my routine because it's all I know by this point. I'm just settling in.
Yeah, exactly. Like the dark ending of this movie would be he does one more job and gets killed on it. That would be the dark ending of this movie. You know, it's like, oh, you should have just took that. You should have took that one. You had one way to get out and you didn't take it. So guess what happens?
Mm-hmm. Or there's like some side character that got away, which we didn't see later on, and because he's about to like turn Jackie Brown,
got a fucking bullet hole in his head, like, ah! Coming after
like zombie chasing after him, shoots him like. For Odell, but he killed you. I don't care. Boom.
Just like, oh fuck, I didn't expect that ending. Chris Tucker hasn't been in the movie for fucking 2 hours, and all of a sudden he's back.
Half his head missing, just like staggering down the fucking road, and is like,
like his fucking basketball jersey and everything coming after him.
No, like, well, I like that, like. How in control Jackie Brown feels throughout the whole movie. At no point, I mean, she does show that she's in peril and she's in trouble at some points, but at no point does she have this, I don't know what I'm going to do. Oh no. She's just a fucking hard ass the whole way. And I like that. She has like a little bit of vulnerability, but not like too much.
Exactly. Well, there's even part 2 of Samuel Jackson's like, she's scared? Well, that doesn't sound like Jackie Brown.
Mm-hmm. Like he even compliments her. Like he's like, I'm going to have to kill this bitch, but I still respect her.
Yeah, exactly. So it's all into that. But no, overall, though, Jackie Brown is one of those movies that's really awesome. And you definitely should see it if you've never seen it for, like, just Tarantino reasons. If you like Tarantino films, it is one of those ones where it's, like, it's definitely a must-see after you've kind of, like, watched the main ones. But it is at the same time, if somebody says, like, it's not really my favorite one, I'd go, okay, I understand. It's one of those movies it's not really meant... I feel like... I don't know, it's like, every once in a while there'll be somebody out there who's like, dude, Jackie Brown is like my ultimate favorite Tarantino movie. And it's always kind of almost even surprising when you hear that too. You're like, really? Really? Mm-hmm. I mean, that's cool that someone can like it that much, but it almost feels like it's not really meant to be like the most amazing Tarantino movie. Like, it almost just has this very like middle ground thing, but that's not a bad thing though. That's not a bad thing. It's just like, that's just the way it plays. It's just like, hey, if you want some more hardcore Tarantino, it's the perfect one. It's like, maybe not the best film he's ever had, but it's still really cool one. And it is that one. It's always been a Lost Gem movie. The movie came out in 97. It was already a Lost Gem movie. It was weird how that was.
It was a movie with a lot of critical acclaim, but it for whatever reason, it just didn't, I don't know, like it just didn't stand out, I guess, to a lot of people. But I think it picked up over time,
Yeah, well, I just think it's like just the mom and pop in Oklahoma audience, I could see like not caring for this movie.
Mm-hmm.
That's where I felt like it probably loses at. Is people that are really into movies, sure, of course it does well. Critically acclaimed, that makes sense. It definitely feels like one of those type of movies. But just like an average audience movie, it's like, you know what I mean? Might have needed a little bit more action, I feel, and maybe a little bit faster pacing for that person.
Right, because I think that this movie is almost like you can call it kind of to some extent, I feel like you could almost call this movie a dramatic comedy to a certain extent. More like a crime like dramedy. I mean, because when I say drama, what comes to mind when I say drama is ultimately like, it's so dramatic and so serious, I won't leave my baby, like that type of shit. But that's when I hear that word. But when I mean drama, I just mean a movie where it's like, okay, it's not entirely an action film, it's not entirely a comedy, and it's a lot more like grounded in reality. That's kind of what a drama usually means to me most of the time. And this movie, it's not packed with action, and it's plenty funny the way through, not gut-busting humor, but a very like toned down humor. So I'm going to say it's, I think that the fact that it's not jam-packed with action and it's not as like violent as other Tarantino films was a curveball for some,
Yeah, no. I think that's what makes it kind of the odd one out. But overall, I think it's an awesome movie. And if you've never seen it and you want to support the podcast all at the same time, I'll put a little link in there for the Amazon one so you can go buy Jackie Brown and enjoy the fuck out of it.
Enjoy the fuck out of it.
Enjoy the fuck out of it.
Put it on the back of the Blu-ray.
Yeah, back of the Blu-ray, that's what it says. Old Man Orange says, enjoy the fuck out of this one. Just put misleading, like, fucking, like, slogans on the back where it's like, action-packed as fuck. So when someone watches, like, dude, there's, like, literally 4 people get shot.
I mean, it's not as misleading as on Equilibrium, where it's like, blows Matrix out of the water. It's like, whoa, let's pump the brakes here, dude.
Yeah, so there's always those ones there too. They're trying, It's like they don't really have it, but
I remember this is gonna seem like off top. It is kind of slightly off topic. We just moved our movie quotes, so I'll make this quick. It's like when that movie Robots, that fucking really shitty like animated movie came out, like in quotation marks, is like some of the best action put on screen in quotation marks, but did not have any source saying who said that.
Yeah.
One of the best movies of the year, in quotes. No source saying who said that, so...
From Standing Stone magazine.
Or in print so tiny you can't see, just like Todd's neighbor or some shit.
Yeah, exactly. Todd's retarded neighbor.
Well, it was colorful. Got his attention.
Yeah, boy, kept him from, like, punching himself for 2 hours, so I guess that's a good thing.
Punch himself, throw on robots. Should we throw on Jackie Brown? No, dude, no, not yet.
No,
ain't there yet.
That might be tough for him. But, check that link out. Make sure to check out oldmanorange.com for more podcasts, cartoons, music, and more. Check out Pizza Boys comic on Amazon and Comixology. Until then, I'm Spencer Scott Holmes.
And I'm Ryan Dunigan.
And we'll see you some other time.
Later, folks.
Thanks for listening to the Old Man Orange podcast. Check out our website at oldmanorange.com for even more podcasts, cartoons, videos, music, and more. Send us an email at oldmanorangepodcast@yahoo.com. Be sure to subscribe, share, rate, and review us on iTunes, Podomatic, or any of the other fine sites we might be located on. And if you want to help out even more, click on the Amazon or GameStop links on our webpage before you make any purchases there. Won't cost you a penny, but it sends us a little something our way. Thanks for listening, and tune in next week to Old Man Orange.